everybody. Welcome to 2 Minutes and Beyond, the podcast where we review the Toy Story movies 2 minutes at a time. I'm Bianca, and this is Macy.
Hello.
Hi. In this episode, we're talking about minutes 17 and 18 of Toy Story.
Hi.
Hello, how's it going?
Good. In the last 15 minutes since we finished, 15 or 20 minutes since we finished recording the last
I know,
episode.
it feels like 15 days. Alright, well, do you want to just get started since we're on a roll right now?
Sure, let's do it.
Alrighty, so this clip starts out with Buzz tapping on his wrist communicator and saying, "No readout yet if the air is breathable." Then it cuts to a close-up shot of his face and arm that he's talking into, and he says there seems to be no sign of intelligent life anywhere. There's another shot from his helmet, and Woody pops in from the side and says, "Hello!" And startled, Buzz jumps back, does a couple of karate moves or something, and shoots his laser at Woody. Woody screams, apologizes, frightening him, and introduces himself, which honestly, I love the way Woody screams when he startles Buzz.
Like, ah!
And he just like flails back. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's so dramatic.
As usual. No surprise there,
Oh,
Woody's
gosh.
being dramatic.
Yes, he's been very dramatic since the first time we see him come alive. Going back, he starts to explain to Buzz that there's been a mix-up, and the bed's supposed to be his spot. But Buzz notices his sheriff badge instead and interrupts him.
I'm like, if someone just like peeked around the corner and said, hello, I would be scared too. I would probably
Honestly,
jump.
yes. And what's funny is that I've caught myself doing that to people at work where I am just popping into like their office area and I'm like, hello, like Woody. And I'm pretty sure I scared them a couple of times doing that because I kind of just bust in like Kramer screaming like Woody. And I'm like, that's a very frightening situation for somebody who's in the zone typing.
I've seen that Buzz's line about like there's no sign of intelligent life anywhere. I feel like I've seen that on a ton of different t-shirts.
Yes, I've seen it on a lot of shirts.
It's one of those things where I'm like I never want to own a t-shirt with a saying like that.
I know.
I love wearing t-shirts and I love wearing t-shirts with like characters and logos on them, but for some reason, just like sayings, I'm like, nope.
Oh my gosh, I know. There's certain times where I will have certain shirts with certain sayings, but not something like that. First of all, that's kind of rude. But but if it says something like, I think I had a shirt. No, it was my brother. He had a shirt that just said no on it. And I was like, see, I would wear something like that. That's funny.
That is funny. How does Buzz not realize when he pulls his laser on Woody, how did he not realize that it's not working?
See, I
Like,
thought
it's
of
not
that
having
too.
any
You would
effect
think
on him.
exactly. You would think that once you see that it doesn't work, you're gonna be like, oh, it's fake.
I know from what he says later about how, he set his laser from stun to kill. I know at least he thinks he's got different settings on his laser, so maybe there's like a warning setting or something that doesn't
Maybe,
actually
or just like a,
do any harm.
I don't know, because that is just, it's a little light bulb that blinks.
It doesn't make any
Oh my
sense.
goodness, Buzz. It really doesn't. At the 25-second mark, Buzz points at Woody's sheriff badge and says, "Local law enforcement, it's about time you got here. I'm Buzz Lightyear, Space Ranger, Universe Protection Unit. My ship has crash-landed here by mistake." Woody tries to explain to him that yes, it is a mistake, but Buzz says, "I need to repair my turbo boosters. Do you people still use fossil fuels, or have you discovered crystallic fusion?" Woody says, "Well, we got double A's."
One even isn't really concerned. yet that this guy thinks he's a real space ranger. He's just like, all he cares about is that this guy's in his spot right now,
I
and he wants him
know.
out.
That's the least of his worries. He's like, I don't care if you're talking like all this random stuff that he probably doesn't even get. And he's like, the only thing I can offer you is double A's, buddy.
It's like, I just watched you, like, rambling into your wrist for a couple minutes, talking to nobody,
I
but I
can
don't
imagine
care.
that was pretty weird for Woody to see. Like he's like, we're not in playtime. What are you doing?
Like, what is wrong with you?
I can imagine both of them are feeling that way because he's like, what's wrong with you being the sheriff? And Woody to Buzz is like, what's wrong with you? You're acting like an actual person and not a toy. At the 43-second mark, Buzz suddenly gasps, yells, watch yourself, and tackles Woody to the ground. He yells, halt, who goes there? And somehow shoots his laser without pushing the button. We see Rex and Slinky peeking over the side of the bed, and Rex says, don't shoot, it's okay. Friends. Buzz asks Woody if he knows who these life forms are, and Woody spits, I guess, pieces of lint or whatever, and angrily says, yes, they're Andy's toys. I love how he just like shoves his face into the bed.
Poor Woody.
He's having a bad day. So, how did Rex get up to look over the bed? Like, who's lifting Rex
That's
up? Because also, he waves his little hands and he's like, wait, it's okay, we're friends. And I'm like, who's holding him?
yeah, him and Slinky both, like, what are they standing on?
Exactly. Well, Slinky, I can understand because he's got the slinky, so he can kind of stretch longer.
But then, like, what is he
But someone would
holding
have
on
had to
to
have
at the
tossed
top?
his upper body. Yeah, he would have had to have had somebody just fling his upper half up into the top.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
Hmm. We're gonna have to figure this out one day.
I like the double A joke.
At the 52-second mark, Buzz stands up, using Woody to help him up and pushing the air out of him, and tells everyone that they can come up on the bed. They all walk over to him and he says, I'm Buzz Lightyear, I come in peace. Rex is relieved that he's not a dinosaur, shakes his hand violently, and says, I'm so glad you're not a dinosaur. Woody starts to get up and recover from being pushed to the ground as Buzz thanks him for their kind welcome. Rex points to Buzz's red skinny button and asks what it does. Buzz demonstrates that and makes a little sound and says, Buzz Lightyear to the rescue. All of the toys are impressed.
I just like their reaction of they're all like, "Oh."
I know, like they've never seen a toy with like voice sounds. I'm like, y'all have Mr. Speak and Spell. Well, I guess because his voice sounds more robotic, that's why they're all impressed.
I think they're also impressed by, like, the quality of the recording and the speaker.
Yeah, I think so because even like Hamm says that he's like, "Oh, like it sounds like really high quality."
It's all copper wired.
Yeah, so they're all. And also, how does Hamm know about all this stuff? He's a bank.
He's a know-it-all.
He is a know-it-all. He probably stays up many a night just reading stuff.
Tam is gonna love it when Wikipedia comes around and he can he can read on, like, Andy's laptop or something.
Right? I know. Oh my gosh. I love Hamm. He's great.
He is great.
At 1 minute 12 seconds, Slinky comments, hey, Woody's got something like that. Only his is a pull string. Only it's, but Potato Head cuts him off and says, only it sounds like a car ran over it. Woody looks hurt and reaches around to grab his pull string. Ham says, this is a quality sound system, probably all copper wiring, huh? So, where are you from? Singapore, Hong Kong? Buzz responds, well, no, actually. I'm stationed up in the Gamma Quadrant of Sector 4. Woody rolls his eyes and reads the back of Buzz's box, which has the exact words that Buzz is saying on it. As a member of the elite Universe Protection Unit of the Space Ranger Corps, I protect the galaxy from the threat of invasion of the evil Emperor Zurg, sworn enemy of the Galactic Alliance. Buzz does his heroic point into the sky for emphasis.
Poor Woody. I feel like Potato Head is just again, being so mean to him.
I
He cuts
know.
he cuts off Slinky to say, "Only it sounds like a car ran over it."
Why is he like, who told him to choose violence when he woke up that day?
And poor Woody, he looks so hurt and, like, offended. I feel bad for him.
I know. I'm like, why would you say that to somebody that you've been with for forever? Like, they've been friends since, whenever Andy
I
got
mean,
them.
friends, I'm not sure
Friends, maybe
if
not,
that's the
but
right word.
they've been colleagues.
There was something else I was gonna say, but I forgot what it was.
Oh gosh.
Oh, no, wait, I remember now. I mean, Woody he kinda doesn't react to it great, though, because he ends up being kind of a jerk about it.
That's true. I mean, I can understand like it's hurtful, but then instead of just being like, okay, well, I'm just gonna forgive them, no, Woody chooses violence too.
Yeah. Also, as Buzz is talking and he's doing, like, his whole, "I'm a member of the elite universe protection unit," or whatever, and there's you can hear some of the musical themes from later in the movie. I think, don't quote me on this because I might be remembering wrong, but I think it's, like, just a little bit like, a little taste of that fanfare from, like, the opening of "I Will Go Sailing No More." It's like da 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 da, that kinda thing.
Yeah.
It's so, like, a little bit of that.
I feel like maybe they're, I guess, kind of like just making a theme for Buzz just because he's like heroic and he's a space ranger, so they got to build him up, but they're using like, I guess, like his theme song just in
Mhm.
little parts here and there, which is really neat.
Yeah.
At a minute 42 seconds, Mr. Potato Head looks at Buzz with a stink eye and his hands on his hips says, "Oh, really? I'm from Play School." And Rex says, "I'm from Mattel." Well, I'm not really from Mattel. I'm actually from a smaller company that was purchased by a leveraged buyout. And Buzz looks like he has no idea what he's talking about.
It's like that polite look of, like, I'm trying to listen to you and be polite, but I have no idea what you're saying.
Exactly. And I feel like if it was of this time, he would have just been like, man, that's crazy.
Also, how did so Mattel didn't want them to use Barbie in this movie, but they apparently let them use just their name for this scene, unless they just did that without asking Mattel's permission.
Maybe. But I feel like even if that would have happened, they would have been like suing them saying, well, they used our name, so we want royalties now. So maybe they did have a part of it. They just didn't want a name as big as Barbie in the
Yeah,
movie, but they were fine with their name.
I don't know.
That's crazy. I'm like, get your act together, Mattel.
This movie saved the Etch-a-Sketch. I don't know how Barbie was doing in 1995, but maybe it could help Barbie.
I think Barbie sales were doing really good because I was buying half of the shelves at every Walmart possible. So I think they were doing okay. At a minute and 50 seconds, Woody walks up to Bo with his arms crossed and said, "You'd think they'd never seen a new toy before." And Bo responds, "Well, sure, look at him. He's got more gadgets on him than a Swiss Army knife."
I hate that this is one of the, like, few times that they actually interact in this movie.
I know. I feel like they should have had way more interactions than what they have. I feel like they should have expounded on their relationship besides the awkward conversation they had before.
Mhm. And the kiss at the end.
Yeah, like they have very little interaction.
It's like Bo is just kind of, I feel like we've talked about this before, but just Bo is just kind of there to be like the girlfriend, and that's kind of it, sadly.
I know I feel like she had more of a role. Well, of course, obviously, because Toy Story 4 was mainly about her. But I feel like they should have added a little more stuff in the previous two movies that she was in, just to
Mhm.
make it a little more interesting.
Either I mean, ideally, like, developing her more as a character, but also showing them together for more than a couple minutes.
I know. Then again, it would have made the movie longer. So I don't know how they would
I
have
don't know.
incorporated that. I don't know. But I would have liked to have seen it.
I have no idea. Also, if you listen while they're talking, you can hear Rex talking in the background, like he's continuing on with what he's telling Buzz about how he's from a company that was bought by Mattel in a leveraged buyout, and I couldn't tell what he was saying, but I wanna hear the rest of that conversation.
Me too.
What is the rest of Rex's story? Like, how did he end up in Andy's room?
I know. And I'm thinking, like, what small company was it? I want to know what this small company was.
I mean, we've talked before about, like, how the other toys are, like, so aware of, like, how they're made and, like, the fact that they use batteries, and that's in contrast to Buzz, who's just totally oblivious, and, like, they're so aware of themselves to the point where they know, like, what company they came from.
I
I've always
know.
thought was really funny.
That is funny. That kind of reminds me, like, later on, the scene from Finding Nemo when they're all telling Nemo where they came from.
Mhm.
And he's like, the one of the fish says like, "Oh, I'm from Pet Palace," and the other one's like, "I'm from Mail Order," and another one says eBay. I'm like, where did they? How did they find out like where they were and how they got sold? And it reminds me like both of these things are very similar.
Yeah. It kinda makes you wonder, how did Woody not know what he was from?
Exactly. I'm like, why are you so in the dark about your origins?
Like, what happened in his past that he doesn't know this?
Maybe the men in black came to him and flashed him with their little flashlight.
Or, what's his name? Rick Dicker from The Incredibles.
That makes more sense because it's in the Pixar universe.
Yeah. There's a part of me that wants to see, like, a Woody prequel movie, and then there's a part of me that's like, "Eh, we don't need that. We're fine."
Maybe if it was a short or something, I'd watch it, but like a whole movie, I don't know if I'd watch it.
Yeah, I don't know.
At 1 minute 57 seconds, Slinky presses Buzz's laser and Buzz pulls away, making noises saying, "Please be careful. You don't want to be in the way," and the clip ends there.
I mean, I don't have anything in particular to talk about that snippet. So should we talk about the extended storyboard scene?
We could, since there really isn't much to talk about that scene that got cut off that we just mentioned. So, right now would be the perfect time to talk about the storyboard.
Yeah. There's an extended storyboard scene that's a version of the scene where it's clearly like the Black Friday, you know, Jeffrey Katzenberg wanted to kept pushing them to make this movie more edgy, and it's on YouTube, so I'll put a link to it in the show notes, but it's really interesting because there's a whole lot more, like, adult jokes. um Buzz says "damn" instead of "blast" when he, like, goes over to his ship and sees how messed up it is, which is crazy.
I was pretty surprised about that. I was all like, "Oh my gosh, Buzz, calm down. It's just a cardboard box."
I kinda like that he says "blast" better too, because that
Yeah.
feels more in character. It
Yeah,
sounds
that
like a
sounds more
space
like
thing.
space rocket thing.
Mhm. Also, like, Bo is straight up flirting with Buzz the whole time.
She's like all over him, pushing his buttons. I'm like, "Ma'am, your man is right there.
Woody is right there.
Literally right there, and you're pawing another man. What's going on?"
She's like, "What would happen if I push this big button or something?" And then he's like, "Please be careful." He does the thing he does with Slinky, except it's with Bo. He says, "Please be careful. You don't want to be in the way when my laser goes off." And she's like, "Don't I?" I'm like, "Oh my
I
gosh."
feel like that's very inappropriate for a child's movie. I'm like, what? First of all, why did you put Bo in this situation? You're just making her seem loose. And then for her to actually say that, I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, Woody, you need to dump her now. But then it's like, to me, now that we have these movies, I'm like, this is so out of character for Bo.
Mhm. I mean, if that's the way that they had ended up doing it, then we might be like, "Yeah, that makes perfect sense."
Yeah, and then we would have thought differently of Bo, like, oh yeah, she's just trashy.
Yeah. I also noticed so they've got a bunch of, like, temp voices in that version. Like, it kinda like, for Woody, it kind of switches between, like, Tom Hanks, and I think it sounds like Andrew Stanton
Hmm.
is doing his voice for some of the lines, and, but for Slinky, at least a couple of lines that I remember, I'm pretty are voiced by voice actor. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's a voice actor named Jess Harnell.
Oh yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah, he's Wacko on the Animaniacs, and he's one of those guys who's in, like, literally everything, it feels like.
Yeah.
But you would never unless you know a lot about, like, voice actors and stuff, you would never know who he is. I wonder if he was one of the original voices that they were considering before they, like, changed Slinky's personality and decided to go with, Jim Varney, because I feel like that's definitely him playing Slinky in that scene.
Yeah, it does sound like him now that you mentioned that. I'm like, oh yeah, his voice does sound even more familiar now. It's, they probably did. Like, they were probably going to keep him, but then they were like, no, Slinky sounds more like Jim Varney.
Yeah, or maybe he was just a temporary voice that they were using for a while, I don't know, but it sounds like Wacko Warner with, like, a little bit of an accent.
Yeah.
It's funny, and I'm like, maybe it's not him, but I know his voice pretty well, and I'm pretty good at recognizing it, and I'm, like, 99% sure that's him.
Yeah, he does have a very distinct voice. And now that you mention it, I'm like, yeah, that did sound like Wacko when I watched it.
Yeah. There's also some lines, like, extra lines in there that I really liked, like, when I think after Buzz, like, pushes Woody down and Woody's, like, getting back up, he says he mumbles something about, like, "Oh, they must have handled him rough in shipping," or
Yeah.
something like that.
I think they should have kept that. I think making Woody sassier like that without him being a total douchebag would have been funny. And I also like the part when after Buzz flies, where Woody is getting mad and he's all like, "He's not a space ranger, he's a toy," and blah blah blah. And they cut to Mr. Potato Head and Ham, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this is getting good." Like he's ready to see a fight happen.
There's also right before Buzz gets up to fly, Woody turns to one of the little tykes and says, "You guys better get ready to clean this up."
Oh my gosh, they're so ridiculous, but I love it.
But yeah, it's clearly like this was it seems like the version of the scene that was in, like, the Black Friday reel, if you know what that is,
Hmm.
where it was a lot darker.
I feel like some of the things should have been put in there, like the whole shipping quote in there. That would have been funny. And of course, Mr. Potato Head wanting to see a fight because that's so in character for him. That was funny. But like the whole scene with Bo, I'm glad that they cut that out.
Yeah, we don't need I mean, she's sort of flirts with him in the actual movie where she's like, I found my moving buddy," but, like, it's not uncomfortable like it is
In
watching
the
this extended
storyboard,
version
yeah,
of the
like they
scene.
made her really like, oh, that's not her at all.
Yeah, it's just it's hard to watch, to be honest.
Yeah. So I'm glad they did the way they made the movie, like they went that route instead of this route. But even with that, it's still fun to see like the storyboards before the actual finished product.
Mhm. I mean, I don't have anything else really to say about this clip.
I don't either. I think because it's mostly it follows the same path that the finished product does. It just had an extra little bit to it.
Well, yeah, but also just in general, like this
Oh, okay,
clip
so
that
like
we're
the
talking
2-minute clip,
about, I
yeah.
don't have anything else to say other than I feel like this whole scene where they first meet Buzz is like probably some of the best writing in the movie.
Yeah, I do like this dialogue scene. It's one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of action happening in this part until like the next episode.
Right,
So there's
yeah.
not a whole it's just a lot of dialogue. There's not a whole lot to talk about.
Yeah. Okay, well, if we don't have anything else to say, let's go ahead and wrap this episode up. And it's actually very short. We didn't have too much to say at all.
I know.
But, anyways, thanks for listening, everyone. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter and send us an email if you have any thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns. And if you enjoy the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. See you next time.
Bye everybody.
Bye.